Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Authors on Mission, where we turn the spotlight on visionaries who aren't just writing books, they're creating movements that transform industries and lives. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer here at Authors on Mission, and today we're diving into the electrifying world of brand differentiation with a guest whose journey from the 1980s rock musician to acclaimed business strategist embodies the very principles he champions. Barry LaBov knows firsthand what it takes to stand out in a crowded marketplace, from reaching the Billboard charts with his band, Mark Urgent, to building a powerhouse marketing agency that shaped iconic brands like Harley-Davidson and Macallan. He's spent decades helping companies discover and celebrate what it means to make them truly valuable. So we're going to be talking about his latest book, The Power of Differentiation. So just get ready, grab a notebook, because today we're pulling back the curtain on how to transform your brand from just another option to the choice that matters. Not only that, we're going to be talking about some incredible writing tips and how to transform your book into something everybody wants to pick up. So please welcome to Authors on Mission, Barry LaBov.
Thank you, Danielle. I think this will be a lot of fun. I'm a big fan, so I'm ready to go.
Well, thank you for that. I'm ready to dive right in too. I always do like to start off by talking a little bit about you, let the audience know a little bit more about who you are. So why don't you give us a very brief rundown? How did you go from being in the music industry with your band to, helping businesses promote themselves? How did that transformation happen?
Well, I wanted to be in rock and roll music. I had been a writer, had some songs on the chart. My music sold well under 1 million copies, though, so I don't want to portray myself as a big hit songwriter. But what happened was I ran a band for a number of years, and I really focused on what the strength of each individual was, so that instead of trying to turn somebody into something they're not, I just wanted them to do what they did the best. And my assumption was that would make our music, our band, the very best it could be. So as time went on, I realized that probably music was not going to be the end result for me, but I wanted to be in a creative environment, and basically started a company that was doing jingles, those irritating little ditties, as well as some audio work. And that led to a client turning to me and asking me to take on all of their marketing, all of their advertising. And I said yes. All of a sudden, I became a full-service agency, and that was 30 some years ago. And it's really worked out well. But I still run the company the same way, Danielle. I look at what are the traits and the strengths of each individual and allow them to really shine. That also translates into how we work with our clients. So we look for what they do best and try to make sure they don't change that. And if anything, they honor it and they celebrate it with the most important people, their employees first. So in a nutshell, that's how we've done this.
Yeah, and I can see how that whole approach translates directly into the power of differentiation, right? By focusing on, what somebody's really good at, their strengths. That's literally the definition of differentiation. So I can see where that all came from. Was there a moment in your career when you realized, I have to put this into a book?
I looked at all the experiences that I had had and shared with my individuals at the company, and I realized that, as I'm becoming an old man, I want to make sure that those stories live on. Not that they're about me, because they're not. They're about some really great people at the company as well as wonderful clients. But the stories are so compelling and inspiring that I thought the idea was really best done as a book that could live on for years and years and years, as opposed to me just talking about the old days. So that's what I did. Now, here's where it got pretty interesting, Danielle. Originally, the book was about branding, and it was directed at businesses. Well, what happened during COVID was 50 million 50 million people quit their jobs during 2021 in the height of COVID. And as I was writing the book, you talked about how to write a book. I was in the middle of writing the book and I had to step back and I thought, identifying the differentiation and meaning behind your brand is not just focused on the customer. It's best focus on those employees that are producing the product or building the product or designing or selling the product. And I thought, my gosh, I've got to pivot what this book is about to make sure that the full message is we need to win hearts, minds, and then market share. So win hearts, minds, and market share is the subtitle of the book.
Wow. Well, I really think that's great that you were able to take all of that and put it into the written form, though, because I know you mentioned that it really was about building your legacy in the beginning, but it seems to have transformed as you began writing it. Would you agree with that, you kind of realized, it's more targeted towards the people who would benefit from it as well?
Yeah, my goal is to inspire 1 million people or more with the book. So I've shared the story behind the book and the meaning and the messages to over 100 different podcasts, and every continent of the world has reached out at one point or another to hear these stories. And it's not about selling the book or selling my services. It's about inspiring people to really celebrate what they do well. Don't try to be something you're not. Be who you exactly are, honor it, and then really let the people around you know how important they are in that task, in that battle to continually grow and do better work for your customers, for the people you work with.
Right, understood. And I can see that. And you have to kind of focus on that audience too, which is exactly what you did in your book. Speaking of which, I see you have it displayed right there in front of you. I was wondering if you wanted to kind of show off that cover for us. It's always something I like to do in this podcast because the cover at the end of the day is a huge selling point. So what went into that design?
Well, we have brilliant designers at our company, and one thing we thought was interesting here is it shows this world of a lot of people, but there's this lightning bolt, and to me that's that passion, that differentiation, and there's one person being really lit up by the lightning bolt, but around that person others are radiating, and in a way, that's what the book is about. It's saying to the individual, could be the leader of the company or one of the leaders, that, you have to believe, you have to embody this. And then if you really do, then those around you will start to feel the same. And that's what the book is about. So we thought, hey, can we create a visual that tells the story of the book? And our artist did a wonderful job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a cover should always resonate a little bit with the topic of the book, of course. And if it tells the story, even better. Not only that, but it's eye-catching. The splash of orange right there in the middle of the blue. It's a great way to catch the eye and get the readers going. I always like to talk about that because as a writer, that's an important thing to consider. The cover, how is your book going to look to others when they first find it on the shelf? So that's really important.
And we, before you leave that, just for those in our audience, we carry that look and those colors in everything we do to promote the book and the message. So whether it's social media, whether it's our website, whatever, we carry that through so that we're very consistent.
I like that a lot. Yeah, you have to keep it consistent because then just subconsciously the audience's mind is going to say, okay, blue and orange, those are the colors of the book. And then really scrolling on media, it'll remind them of it. So perfect stuff. But what I was going to say is, of course, we do like covers, but what's inside the book is most important also. In your book, you do introduce the concept of the commodity monster. So I wonder if you can explain what this is. I know it's not a monster hiding under your bed necessarily, but something that is really affecting people's businesses.
Well, I think it applies to everybody, Danielle, because we can commoditize ourselves. So it fits our author audience out there. It fits the companies that we get to work with. And it's all about the idea that there is a pressure to lower your price. There's a pressure to look like, act like, smell like, be like everything else. And our book really stands up for that individual or that individual brand to say, look, you're never going to command a premium. You're never going to get the attention you deserve if you give in to that commodity trap, or we call it the commodity monster, because it will eat you alive. So you got to fight it. You got to battle it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that metaphor too. Is there a reason why you chose like a monster that you have to battle over another metaphor? Or did it kind of just naturally come that way?
It's the way that I will work on something with our team, and it came out, and we thought, that's interesting because it is a monster. It will devour you, and you have to fight it. It is not something that just sits there meekly. It is the way the world has become, which is to really pressure you to fit in and decontent or dumb down what you offer so that you look and act like everyone else. And of course, that's where you can't make money. You don't get the sales you like because you're like everyone else. And so we're really standing up for that individual and that uniqueness that a brand has.
Right, definitely. And I can see how your book really does dive into that and offer tips. I'm wondering perhaps if you can share maybe a brief example of a company who's successfully done this following your methods.
There have been hundreds of them. We have worked with a copper producing company, so it doesn't sound very exciting, but we helped them change their name. We helped them realize that the product they were selling very cheaply, and it had no name, needed to be named because it was their top differentiator, and it needed to be their premium priced product because it was the only sustainable, environmentally friendly product of its kind in the world. Today, that company is number one in market share and profitability. So that's an example. Otherwise, they would have gotten rid of that product, never named it, and just tried to get by. But instead, they're now championing what they produce with great pride.
Wow, okay. Well, that's really interesting. We didn't even have a name for their product, though. I was very surprised by that. I guess maybe in that industry that's not typical.
I think a lot of companies don't have a name. There'll be the 223407, there'll be the 27A, there'll be the 14A19 or something. You go, what the heck is that? And, we name our children. We don't have child 1, child 2, and child 3. We name them, and we tell the reason why we name our children. We should name those very, very special differentiators as well.
Understood. Got it. Well, hey, that's really cool to know, though. And I think that there's a lot to think about in a name. I mean, for example, you named your book The Power of Differentiation. It's important to give a title to something that gives the audience some information about what it is and also drives some engagement there. So definitely know where you're going with that. But transitioning a little bit into the writing process itself, what all of our audience is here eager to learn about. I mean, you wrote a very successful book that, as you said yourself, has resonated with so many different people. What was your writing process? What was your writing routine like as you wrote this book? I mean, I'm sure you had a lot of particular habits or environments that enhanced your creativity as you were going about this.
What I did is I approached this book like I approached writing songs. When I wrote songs, I would sit at the piano and work on it until I was no longer inspired, and I'd leave. And then I come back, could be an hour later, could be 5 hours later, and do that. And I did the same thing with the book. I forced myself to sit down with a laptop and start writing what I thought were interesting concepts. I also, and this is important, I believe, for our audience, Danielle, is I did not worry about perfection. Perfect does not exist in songwriting. So as an example, some of our favorite songs that we have ever heard in our lives were accidents. Somebody put their finger on the wrong spot of the guitar keyboard or the keyboard on the piano. And what happened was they went, wait a minute, that's interesting. I did the same thing here, and I really urge people to do this. I forced myself, after I organized some of the topics, to sit down and write and not worry about the opening sentence or two. Write what my thought and my passion was all about. Finish that thought. So that could have been 6 pages, 20 pages. It could have been 3 paragraphs, but I wanted to finish it. I did not want to work on that perfect opening line because there is no such a thing. Then what I did was, once I was done with that passion, I set it aside for a day or two. Then I looked at it and I went through it. And most of the time I found it was better than I thought it was when I wrote it. I actually thought, wait a minute, there's some good stuff in here. And of course I tweaked it and edited it. I then went to the next topic and I forced myself to go through topic by topic, beginning to end, all my thoughts on each of these without the worry or pressure of perfectionism. I did that. I wrote the entire book in 3 months, and then I rewrote the entire book about 1.5 years as I did it. And each time I rewrote the book, I had others take a look, give me good input on it, suggest things, critique it, etc. But the thing I also did that I really think is important is I made sure it was in my voice. So if somebody edited it and said, oh, here's what it is, and I looked at it and I go, okay, I don't talk like that. Not that they were wrong, it's just, it wasn't me. I made sure that it was my voice. And I think we have to do it because if we don't watch out, we could have a really great idea for a book, but literally the reader will lose interest if all of a sudden there's a difference in the tone. There's a difference in the words being used. So I made sure every line was something I could say. So I forced myself to do it. I would step back, I'd go back in. And that's what I did over that 3 or so months where I wrote the bulk of the book.
Wow. I really appreciate you going into all those details so that is so perfect because that's exactly what our audience is looking for and needs to hear. From the tip of just write, don't worry about the perfectionism, just get it out there, mistakes, make the most of it. That's also wonderful tips and everything that you mentioned. Moving forward from that, I think it's stuff that everybody needs to include in their writing process, or at least keep in mind. It's all incredible stuff. It sounds like the process is relatively easy for you, or at least you make it seem pretty easy. I'm sure you did and come across some roadblocks in the process, though, too. Was that the case, or maybe it was that easy?
Well, I'm prolific, but I always say that doesn't mean what I'm writing is good. I force myself to write something because I don't allow myself to critique every single word. And I learned that doing all the creative work I've done in other areas like music over the years. Yes, I have to say it's easy for me to write something, but what's really important is to get the entire thought out. I have too many friends that have been talking about writing their book for the last 10 years. And they might have the first 2 or 3 sentences of a chapter. And I'm going, those sentences are nice, but nobody is going to buy a book based on 1 or 2 sentences. What is your message? I really think out there and this is what I suggest with authors, a lot of times you're pressured, you have to have 60,000 words. I was told that by a hybrid publisher. I think I was at 40,000 words at that point. And I thought, boy, that's a lot. And she said, you got to get to 60. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then I stopped for a second. I thought, I will take her advice that I can go deeper and maybe share more. But, it's not about me coming up with a number. It's about what is the message. And somewhere around 40 to 50,000, I said, I'm done with my message. I don't have anything else, and I'm not going to stretch it. One of my critiques when I read a book is I'll start to read that first chapter, and I'm going, okay, this is going to be great. And then the next chapter is kind of like the first, and then by the 5th or 6th chapter, the author's repeating the same thing over and over again. And I'm going, this would have been a great booklet or pamphlet. Instead, it's a lousy book. So I urge everybody, write what's in your heart. Don't worry about perfection. Force it out. Get the thing done. Step away. Then look at it with fresh eyes. I guarantee anybody in the audience listening, you will like it better than you think. I guarantee you force yourself to write that chapter today and you're going, I don't know if that was any good. And look at it tomorrow and you're going to go, this is pretty good. I think I can improve a few of these lines here, but boy, there's some good stuff in here. That's what we have to do. Our books are not designed to be a word count. They're designed to inspire, to inform, to entertain. And it starts with us. We have to make sure we get those thoughts out.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I really do agree with what you mentioned about the word count. As a ghostwriter and editor myself, I always get the question, how many words does my book need to be? Or clients are saying my book's not long enough. I want you to ghostwrite some more, so on and so forth. But I always say you don't want to add that fluff. You're just losing your reader, you're losing your audience and the point. I mean, you're repeating yourself over and over, like you said. So definitely on board with that one for sure. So, Barry, along with this book here that you have written, I know you have a couple others on deck, but I'm also wondering what else is on the horizon for you, or do you have any upcoming projects that you've been dabbling with that you'd like to share?
Well, I think I'll answer this from an author's standpoint. I could write another book right now, or certainly do an addendum to this book. But my belief, and somebody said this to me early on, and that is, you don't really launch your book one day. You constantly relaunch that book. I look at creating a book kind of like having a child. You have a child, but that's not the accomplishment. It's how you help that child grow and how you nurture that child. So my primary focus at this moment is to make sure that this book is shared, is read, the message is out there. I'm getting opportunities to do keynote speeches on it. Like I said, I've done over 100 podcasts. Our book is in the libraries of colleges and universities worldwide, including Cambridge University in England. In fact, I was invited on their podcast. So my goal is, instead of veering off the path and coming up with a different book, my goal is to really maximize the message that is in this book.
Understood. No, I like that. And it kind of goes back to what we're saying about word count too, right? You don't want to keep producing more content if there's not necessarily something more to do, but you can enhance what you do have and continue to nourish it. And I do agree with what you said. There's one thing between putting your book on the shelf and waiting for it to get sold, or constantly nourishing it, like you said. And I do agree that metaphor of it being like a child is exactly what we're going for here. You need to continuously promote it and market it. I'm wondering, did any specific techniques work for you better than others?
In marketing and promoting it, what we're doing is we're taking every message in the book and we're sharing it in a newsletter that comes out twice a month. We're sharing it on social media posts. We have our own podcast that's focused on differentiation. It's called Difference Talks. That's the name of the podcast. We've interviewed people on that podcast from all over the world, wonderful leaders who are sharing their stories. So it's very, very inspiring. Our company has our own training university, and we include all the messages in the book. So I look at it as, how do I maximize these messages? So they're all over the place. It could be I'm on a podcast one day, I'm going to do a keynote another, there's a social media post. We're taking that message and we're sending it out there to the world the best we can. And like I said, we're in every continent, we're in all these different universities. And I've also talked with classes at universities. So looking at every element possible to promote the message.
Understood. And I appreciate that. And those are tips that everybody does need to learn too, because you can't just write a book and expect it to be successful. You do need to put in the work, just like you mentioned. That's some wonderful stuff right there. So I'm wondering, as we begin to wrap up today, Barry, what other advice and insights would you want to offer our audience today? Perhaps a piece of homework that they can implement as soon as our show's over in their own writing world.
All right. Well, the homework I give our audience here is, let's say you're working on your book. Force yourself to write one concept or chapter, whatever it is. Finish the thought from the very first word to the very end today. And if it took you 20 minutes or it took you 2 hours, it took whatever it was. And then don't judge it. Don't go back through it. Set it aside. And then tomorrow, pull it out and see if, you know what, maybe that's a little bit stronger of a writing performance than you thought. And maybe that's a great way to really urge yourself and get those creative juices flowing so that you can finish the project. You know, I look at it like this. If the tree falls in the forest and no one's there. The old saying is, did it make any sound, right? Well, if you have a great concept for a book, but you never finish it, was it really a great concept? And my point is, let's allow your concept to live. But it starts with you. Get that thing forced out of your brain and then let it sit for a little while. And I guarantee you'll be very pleased.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let it sit, let it marinate for a bit, see what else grows from doing so. That's wonderful advice. So yeah, if people do want to get in touch with you, then stay up to date, maybe learn a little bit more from you, what's the best way they can connect?
I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free. I will respond to every LinkedIn inquiry. I have my own website, barrylabov.com, and my company has its own website, labov.com. I urge anybody to look up Difference Talks. It's on Spotify, YouTube, etc. We have our own website, differencetalks.com. Subscribe. Take a look at some of these really great podcasts that people have shared with us. So I invite you to do that. Feel free to talk to me, reach out. I'll always respond.
I love that. I'm glad that you're very open for everybody because it's important to connect with your audience and to, have this type of community. People do think that writing is a solitary endeavor, but you need that community to, really grow yourself. So it's great that you're open to, offering advice like that. That's wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a really illuminating conversation. I think we've learned a ton from you, and it's just been very fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. I can hear your passion for this topic, and I can tell it means a lot to you to help others. So it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to writers, I think we all, like I've mentioned before, need a team on your side. And every guest that we have on this show only adds that great army of team members we have on this mission. So it's great. So yeah, and if you're listening today, everybody, if you enjoyed the episode, definitely be sure to check out Barry's book, The Power of Differentiation. It's available now. Be sure to connect with Barry at his LinkedIn link like he mentioned. We're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today, so you can go ahead and click right over and connect right away. So don't forget to check out some more of that. And until next time, just remember that in a world of commodities, differentiation isn't just a strategy, it's your superpower. And the same goes for your writing too. So keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.